Peace. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today on this segment, I want to talk about Willie Lynch syndrome, right? Or the Willie Lynch letter, whatever we want to call it. Now, for those who don't know who Willie Lynch is, Willie Lynch was a plantation slave owner around the 1700s that so-called came up with a solution on how to stop slave rebellions and how to make the perfect slaves. So before I even know who this man supposedly was, I just keep hearing about the Willie Lynch syndrome, right? And supposedly this guy came up with a solution on how to turn the slaves against each other, like the old versus the young and like the light versus the dark and so forth. Just kind of like tools of like deception and self-hatred amongst one another. So growing up, every time I seen something or hear black people doing something to each other, they used to be like, man, that's that Willie Lynch syndrome. Because supposedly he said these things will work for thousands of years. So I don't think it's true, right? I think this is a myth, another thing that white folks created to kind of like psychologically kind of like take advantage of us, right? So because there were still plantation rebellions that were going on, there was still stuff that was happening that white folks have not told us about our history here. So yeah, when you get people that kind of like omit certain information about history, like when they don't tell you about certain rebellions, when they don't tell you about people fighting back, then you will believe that this man Willie Lynch actually implemented a plan that worked and is still working. But I must remind our people that after slavery, black folks was actually together. Black folks was actually doing things to get out of their conditions that they were in, right? Like and they needed so much help, but with the little bit that they had, they was making things happen. That's just the type of people that we are. We make it happen. So black people was actually thriving, right? Even during segregation, right? Black people had their schooling, they had like their own businesses. They was actually thriving. And because they were thriving, it led white folks to kind of like create the Ku Klux Klan. It led white folks to further organize to oppress our people even more, right? So if the Willie Lynch syndrome or letter actually worked, there wouldn't be no need for like white supremacy to like incorporate these extra gruesome forms of violence towards our people. So that is a clear indication that it didn't work. And not just the Klan, right? Even like let's go a little further down in history. When the Black Panther Party came about, or when the NOI came about, black folks is still doing things. Black folks were still organizing to get themselves out of the situations that they were in. Every time black people did things to get out the circumstances they was in, here came the white man meddling and trying to disrupt that and destroy that. So to me, Willie Lynch syndrome is a myth. Just like it's a tool that was used to kind of like keep us complacent to the things that we are seeing today so that we don't move to try to change these things. Kind of like Christianity in this country. When King James burnt up all the Bibles in the 1600s and he established the King James version of the Bible, which kind of made slaves more submissive to kind of like accept slavery, right? Because the New Testament had things like saying like obey your earthly masters, and a lot of weird stuff was in there, right? But this is what our people at the time was holding on, right? Because they believed in the God that these Christians made, right? Because they changed a lot of stuff. Not saying that Christianity was not a faith ordained by God. What I'm saying is that malicious folks, white folks, we got to highlight that, malicious white folks kind of change the language, the interpretation to kind of like make us more submissive. But just like in our history, they left things out that we don't pay attention to. Like in the Bible, for instance, the disciples had swords. Jesus' disciples were armed. So if Jesus was so cool about peace, non-violent, and not fighting, and all these things that they made us believe that he was about, why was his disciples carrying swords? which we don't really question, right? Because we have become like animals. Like wherever they tell us to go, we just go. We like sheep, you know. We just follow the herd, right? But this is not about Christianity. This is not about religion. But I'm trying to show you how this myth about this man has also made us be complacent in our society. Well, I'm here to tell you that I am done being a slave, and I'm trying to educate myself so that I don't have to uphold and reproduce some of these harmful ideologies that we were taught. So, tell me what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.